when any one of us, the introvert, the extrovert, and us, the otroverts, get these labels, I think one of the things that it forces us to do is to lose our authenticity, that which people tell us to genuinely be. These same people are telling us on one side of their mouths to be authentic are also judging us for when our authenticity doesn't look like normal. Hey, hi there guys, Warren here. Today I want to talk about the gift of not belonging. Because we live in a world where outsiders, I think, can thrive in a world of joiners. But we live in a world that says we have to be joiners and belonging matters. I've done several episodes now where I've talked about that belonging matters. Community matters. If our ancestors weren't communal, they wouldn't have lasted very long. They would have walked the cold tundra alone and wouldn't have fared well. They would have been eaten by the same predators that they preyed upon for food. So community matters, and they've passed that on. But there's so many nuances to that now, especially with all the advancements we have. Do we still need to be as communal and connected as we're told that we need to be? And I've been reading this book for a while now. For those of you who have joined me, don't judge me. But it's become like a study in and of itself about how us outsiders can thrive. And I'll just go ahead and, if you allow me, I will just read something to you and you tell me if this sounds like you. All right. One otrovert I know told me a story of being guilted into attending her 20th high school reunion by a friend who didn't want to be alone. She acquiesced, but about an hour into the party, she had become so bored by all the small talk that she ended up leaving, slipping quietly out the back door in the hope that no one would notice. This disappearing act, she said in retrospect, made me feel guiltier than I would have felt if I had refused to go in the first place. Is this you? The feeling of being obligated to, dare I say, be normal? And again, our society says, and worse yet, shuns those and puts them in boxes that aren't fair and that they don't belong in. Let me read something else here for you about normal. But what does normal mean? Surprisingly, there is no consensus regarding what it takes to be considered normal, which is problematic for anyone who thinks differently. There is no clear psychiatric definition of normal, which leaves it up to the collective to decide and who is abnormal. And I think therein lies the problem. When society decides unilaterally who is, and worse yet, who belongs. And me saying who belongs remind me of a story I shared in another episode, but I'll share here too. And that's of an English-speaking tourist in a foreign country telling their version of a TSA worker that if he couldn't speak English, he shouldn't be there. You heard right. An English-speaking tourist in a foreign country telling a resident, a native of that country, that if they didn't speak or understand English, they shouldn't be there. This was because of an episode in the airport about removing bag covers from bags. But I think this is what happens when society unilaterally gets to say who is normal, and then worse yet, who is abnormal, and then who belongs. Like this cat with, if you don't speak English, you don't belong here. But I think that's what happens. And there is a little bit more I wanted to read to you guys. Here we go. The best definition of normal that I've encountered is being predictable to others, which just leads to being inauthentic, right? Because now you're filling in the gaps, pretending. For the social contract to succeed, every member of the collective needs to meet a threshold of trust with all the rest. And we assess trust by degrees of predictability. Predictability is generally benevolent and helpful. It is meant to ease social integration and manage the tension that can arise in a group of mingling strangers. Even though others cannot read our thoughts or foresee our intentions, we do our best to reassure them of our good intentions by behaving in a way that they expect. And then that goes to until they don't. And then the judgment begins, and the shunning begins, and the over-medicating begins, the self-medicating begins, because of society getting a unilateral decision on who is normal, abnormal, and worse yet, who belongs. But there's hope. There's hope, because if you've been wondering what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, let me give you the definition of us. And it's going to be all the way back to the beginning. But again, bear with me. I think if you're still with me, I appreciate it, and I think you'll find this super interesting, because I didn't know this word, or that there was a definition for us. So, here is who we are, or what I've been talking about so far. An otrovert. An otrovert embodies the personality trait of non-belonging, remaining an eternal outsider in a communal world. Unlike those with relational disorders, otroverts are empathetic and friendly, yet struggle to truly belong in social groups, despite no apparent behavioral distinctions from well-adjusted individuals. That's us. Otroverts. But I mean, and I've been reading this book, like I said, for a while, but it's just become like a case study, and I can't get through it. It's been about a month. And the title of our episode is from the book, and it is How Outsiders Thrive in a World of Joiners, The Gift of Not Belonging, by Dr. Rami Kaminsky, MD. Super well known in the practice, by the way. But belonging matters. But I mean, how much of it and how genuine can we be when we truly don't fit in? And like I alluded to, the judgment that comes with that and the inauthenticity that we have to pretend and put on masks because we think that we have to fit in these boxes and with these labels. But let's just stay with authenticity. I think when any one of us, the introvert, the extrovert, and us, the otroverts, get these labels, I think one of the things that it forces us to do is to lose our authenticity, that which people tell us to genuinely be. These same people are telling us on one side of their mouths to be authentic are also judging us for when our authenticity doesn't look like normal. And I find that really problematic because, again, it drives people to be over medicated, both the self medication, which is just horrible, and then, of course, the prescribed stuff that is overly done because people don't understand what it is they see because they have unilaterally decided what normal looks like. And then because of that, and there's an example in the book of a patient of Dr. Rami's that is just had been bedridden for so long, talented person, because she didn't understand what it was, and everyone is telling her that, again, she's abnormal and over-medicating her for years. So the second thing I think it does for us is that it stifles very productive, creative people's productivity, years lost of being productive, both in society and in our personal growth, because society has unilaterally told us that we're abnormal because we don't fit in the box that they've said normal looks like. And the thing about introverts, without giving the book away too much, is that we can operate. We can operate in any of the environments, like the example I read. She went, but I bet you it's that feeling, and I've had this feeling, so I give you my personal example. You ever come back from a party or a function, and when you get in your apartment or place of residence, you're just like, man. And I'm not talking about physical tired. It's that emotional drain. And not because it's your place and your place is the most comfortable place, right? Just a straight emotional drain again, because you were so trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, of which there's nothing wrong with being the square peg or the round hole. But if the round hole is accepted and the square peg is not, then there's a problem. And that brings me to the third thing that I think it really stifles: participation. Because you participate, but you don't do it genuinely. You do it forcefully because, again, you don't want to be labeled and you don't want to be judged. And so you pretend and you participate in these things that are not you, that you would rather be home with a book curled up in your mismatched sweats and your house slippers, and that would be perfectly fine with you. I know. I know. That's a me thing. That's a me example. But it forces people into these fake participations, and then I'll get to my last one and close. All of that, all three of those, and take them in aggregate with our overall happiness, being happier, is stifled. Because you can't. You can't genuinely be happy if you can't genuinely be authentic. It just doesn't make sense, right? What is one of the things they say that dog doesn't bark? That math doesn't jive. It can't be happier if you can't genuinely be authentic. And when it's misunderstood, I think those are the things, those four things that we suffer the most when we're put into boxes and labels, and we feel like we have to force ourselves to belong, even though belonging matters. Because again, if our ancestors did not practice that, and if we didn't practice some of it now, it wouldn't last very long. But I just ask, at what cost? At what cost must we be communal and belong to be accepted for who we are? Because at the end of the day, we can't be happier if we can't be authentic, genuinely authentic. So I just say, get to know us, understand us, and realize that not every puzzle piece was meant for that puzzle. All right? And until our next conversation, you be good out there. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk again soon. I'll see you.